I've been told by Negroes that if I try to be cordial, they won't listen to me and I don't get any respect for them because they don't talk to each other that way. You've got to act like you're fixing to beat them up and act stupid. I'm fixing to pick up a rock and hit you with it. I'm going to bring on Neptunes Lagoon, and I'm going to pre-warn you that Neptunes Lagoon is raw. He may say some things that you may feel is rabid racist. But I'm gonna bring him on, and I'm bringing him on in the blind. So I don't know what kind of wild shit this man's gonna say. So I'm scared to even bring him on, but I'm gonna do it. The Egyptians were Aryans. And this is a simple one, which if you were to know that this is scribes from the earliest of dynasties, and this is a 5th dynasty scribe, you might get the idea that these guys are not only just Caucasians, but they're blue-eyed, and so they'd have that fair trade also, like Ginger does, and so on. And yeah, there's a good, more full picture of it. And it's these crystal eyes. That's what I did this video about, because they're denoting how they're made out of a crystal and then beveled to look like real human eyes, and the intensity that they put into it and everything. And of course, wrapped with lapis lazuli and all those things, just like the Sumerians, and they show blue-eyed statues and everything. And now that all attaches to all these people and stuff, and these ancient Aryans. And it's kind of what I guess the Germans had found out, but they did something wrong with it. But that's another story altogether.
This is the problem that I had. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but your guess appears to me to want to make everything in the globe Eurocentric.
If I was to simply do something like look up in Google blue-eyed Egyptians, you're going to see something that actually exists. So if you just simply Google blue-eyed Egyptians, like you see right there, blue-eyed Egyptians, then you can see blue-eyed Egyptians. And from the earliest dynasties, they only used these crystal blue eyes until they kind of ran out or lost the technique. But it does carry through somewhat. These are from earliest dynasties all the way through the 12th dynasty and then 18th. And then we, of course, have Queen Nefertiti that everybody talks about. And boy, blacks the fit whenever they put out the depiction of her. She's black, and all this stuff. And wow, how pitiful to cling at something that you didn't even know existed for. She still has a blue eye left. The other one isn't blue because it's missing. But this eye is still there. And they did that recreation of her, and yeah, she's Caucasian. What else could she possibly be? These blue-eyed Egyptians. And look, here's the women that are even drawn more pale and blue-eyed. This is Nofret and her husband Ra-Hotep. And they're blue-eyed. Oh, they got a dark picture here. Dark does not mean Negro. Dark with pale women does not mean Negro. Red ochre does not mean Negro. And so one key thing about Aryans here is that they have blue eyes. And they're apparently the bloodline that carries the blue-eyed trait. And so you have a lot of English and things that are in there, and a lot of English are extremely white. And so you'll have that. But research comes to light, and it shows that Badarians, which were Aryans, are a good representative of what the common ancestor to all later pre-dynastic and dynastic Egyptian peoples would be like. This was by Dr. J.D. Irish back in 2006. And they definitely have somewhat of an Aryan appearance to them. And they're finding mummies that have blonde hair and reddish hair in Egyptians' tombs and stuff like crazy as they're looking through this, and especially the oldest ones.
I'm just simply saying that your guess, respectfully, it appeared to me that he was doing the very thing that we claim Afrocentrics do, which is claim everything is black, black, this is black, that's black, black people were here, black people were everywhere. He was well, I could tell he was well read, he's well studied in what he's talking about, but you can make an argument that he's doing the same thing that Afrocentrics do. He's doing a Eurocentric thing, which, by the way, Chief X, when we went to school, the stuff that he was talking about, that's what they taught us in school, that everything in the world was created by white people, by Europeans. So I'm not trying to be a tit for tat here, but some of what he was saying has the same sort of perspective that you would call Afrocentrics, making everything.
Well, now we're finding that the ancients, these blonde and blue-eyed mummies and stuff, everything, were actually white people. And somehow I'm white. Somehow my white people forgot all this shit. The genetic study shows how Egypt actually is related to the Middle Easterners and not Africans, and that Middle Easterners are actually related to Europeans, but the Europeans are closer related to the Egyptians than these people are.
Neptunes Lagoon is a lion racist pseudo-scholar. Yes, that says it all about Neptunes Lagoon. Now, Neptunes Lagoon is a low-life racist.
Did the ancient Egyptians really have blue eyes? Well, some of their sculptures did, but there's way more to this story, as we're about to find out. During the past several decades, there has been a lot of discussion concerning the race and ethnicity of the ancient Egyptians. This is perfectly understandable, since for years, especially in Europe and the United States, Egyptians have been frequently portrayed in ads, movies, and in scholarly research as light-skinned Caucasians, looking more like Northern Europeans than Middle Easterners or Africans. But this desire for whiteness is understandable as well. For 3,000 years, Egypt was the richest, most powerful nation in the Mediterranean world. Modern people, both black and white, feel a strong kinship with that ancient society and want to be a part of all its remembered glory and glamour. So they turn to sculptures and paintings as evidence that the ancient Egyptians must have looked like them. Often cited, at least by white people, is the fact that a number of sculptures depict the ancient Egyptians with blue eyes. Blue eyes mean Caucasian, right? Well, no. White, black, and brown people can have blue eyes, although brown eyes are far more common overall, even among whites. As well as for its burials, which include pottery, many of which depict funeral scenes. In the Quada culture, we first see two symbols that will become an important part of ancient Egyptian beliefs for the next 3,000 years: blue-eyed sculptures and the Ka symbol. Written during historic times as a hieroglyph of upraised arms, the Ka signifies protection of the soul of the dead. In this sculpture of an Egyptian pharaoh dating from 1750 BC, some 2,000 years later than the Quada period, we see both a Ka symbol and blue eyes. So, the two symbols are intertwined. Sculptures like these are often used to argue that a mysterious race of blue-eyed, white-skinned Nordic types lived in Egypt during ancient times and then disappeared without a trace. But let's pause for a moment to consider the meaning of modern figurines, or dolls, or action figures if you prefer. Do we seriously believe that these figures represent the actual appearance and physical characteristics of real, living human beings? Of course not. The Pyramid Age lasted some 500 years and is known as the Old Kingdom. Not only was the Old Kingdom the heyday of pyramid building, it was also when most of the blue-eyed Egyptian sculptures were created. Here are the portraits of Prince Rahotep and his wife Nofret. Rahotep was the brother of King Khufu, builder of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Rahotep has reddish-brown skin, but his wife has pale skin. This is not about race, but an artistic convention, showing that Nofret was an aristocrat who did not need to work out in the sun and get a tan. Their very realistic eyes are made of rock crystal, and they are blue. Here's another portrait of Rahotep, and he has brown eyes. So what's going on here? Not only with Rahotep, but with all those other blue-eyed sculptures from the Old Kingdom. For years I wondered about this, and nothing I read seemed to provide the answer. Then one day, I was listening to an interview with crime writer and former medical examiner Patricia Cornwell. Cornwell was explaining about how difficult it is to identify unknown dead bodies. and she said, "You can't even tell the eye color." The interviewer asked, "Why not?" And Cornwell answered, "Well, due to post-mortem changes, all dead people have blue eyes." That was it. I knew it. These blue-eyed Old Kingdom sculptures, by the way, are not of living people. They are of dead people, created specifically to be put inside their tombs. I think that the blue eyes, a physical change that sometimes begins to occur even shortly before death, was seen by the ancient Egyptians as a sign that these men and women had entered the afterlife, that they had joined the gods and the ancestors in the blue sky among the stars. And even though blue-eyed tomb sculptures were rarely made after the Old Kingdom, the idea itself continued through the use of a symbol known as the Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus represents well-being, health, healing, and protection. Those New Kingdom and Ptolemaic period mummy masks with a brilliant blue eyeliner and eyebrows, some even with blue eyes, reflect earlier religious beliefs going back some 3,000 years. Look familiar? So, I think it's time we quit arguing over the eye and skin color of the ancient Egyptians.